Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, man. Let's get this show on the road, man. Let's get it. Shout out to my people out here, man. Man, that's crazy. Sunday night, which is crazy. It don't really seem like it, but yeah, it is. Wow, that's crazy, man. But we here. Salute all the way. Hit that like button, man. Where you guys at? Are you ready for this on a Sunday? Okay. Things kind of passed by, man. The weekend went by pretty damn fast, but man, yeah. For sure. Tap in, you already know. So you see the title, man. The title says, I don't know, I almost forgot the title myself. Mexicans taking over Compton and anti-ICE protests across America. So let's get it. Conversations like this attract a whole lot of trolls, right? Now, when you think about the Bloods and Crips in LA, that's gonna be over with real soon. That's gonna be over with because the black population in Los Angeles overall is on a decline, and that ain't got nothing to do with Mexicans. Well, it got something to do with it, but it's not like it's mainly due to economics and things like that. A lot of blacks just been leaving these communities. Like you got areas where there's no black and Mexican beef, and you're still gonna see you're gonna notice that blacks have left that area, right? If you go to like a lot of neighborhoods, right, that blacks and Mexicans get along in these areas, but you still see you notice that there's a decline in the black population even in those areas. But at this point, it makes no sense to gang bang because it's like shit. You know what I'm saying? Like your population is dying out. I thought LA population was around 8. It's around 6 according to Google. No, it's like about 8. And that's low. That's real low, man. Because LA at one point in time had a large black population at one point in time, right? But a lot of people been leaving. And it ain't just blacks. You got a lot of Mexicans who have left LA too. Like when I go back to my old neighborhood, none of the Mexicans who used to stay there anymore. The Mexicans you see now are like the immigrants and the paisas and stuff. But the Mexican American families who used to live there, they're gone. That community is like you're gonna see like certain foreigners live over there that's never lived in the community. So a lot of people who are not from LA don't understand this. But I'm here to put this in proper perspective. No, they don't have more money. The thing, this is the thing. It's not that they have more money. Latinos will live together and pay rent. Black people can't get along. Like, how could I put it? I put it like this: you're not going to see black families coming together to live in a house. They gotta be that gotta be their last resort. They gotta be struggling. They're not gonna do that. You know what I mean? You don't want to live with your cousins. You don't even want to live with your brothers and sisters. Black people just can't live with each other like that. That's the reality of the situation. Mexicans will live together. They'll put their differences aside to save money. because they're gonna look at the bigger picture. But like I said, the Mexicans in my community, they don't live there anymore. Those Mexicans are paisas now. So tell them how it is in East LA. Well, East LA, East LA has always been like on some anti-black stuff, right? East LA has never had a large black population. Now, you got Aliso Village, right? Those are projects in East LA, like Boyle Heights, East LA over there, right? At one time, you had the first Street East Coast Crips. This was like in the 80s and the 90s. Then once the 2000s came, you seen that black population just, you know what I mean, start fading out. It just started fading. The first Street East Coast Crips, right? They had beef with, I believe, what was the Palmetto Flats or the Quattro Flats, one of the flat gangs over there. Then eventually, every Mexican gang in that area came together to say, okay, we're gonna go against the blacks to get blacks out of our community. So you had the East LA Dukes, that's a Mexican gang. You had I think it's called the Al Capones, the Capones, that's another Mexican gang. You had the TMC, the Magician Crew. You know what I mean? That's another Mexican gang. Then you got the Flats, the Palmetto Flats, the Quattro Flats. All those Mexicans put their differences aside and say, okay, we're gonna all come together and go at the East Coast Crips. It's not that they got along with each other, because most of those Mexican gangs was beefing with one another as well. But they said, we're gonna have a ceasefire to direct our attention towards these blacks to move them up out of here. So that's exactly what the Palmetto Flats. The Palmetto Flats. And then you got the Quattro Flats in the area too. Right. But this started like in the 80s, maybe like the late 80s, early 90s. So the Crips in East LA had to beef with all the Mexicans in the projects, and not just in the projects. You got Mexican gangs outside of the projects in the surrounding area. So they had to beef with everything over there that was Mexican. Tania, Shalani Tania, what's going on with you, girl? I want y'all to hear this Mexican cat break down the anti-black racism that comes from their community. It's a part of their culture. Like, the Spanish trained Latinos how to have this hatred towards blacks. I don't care if you're in the Caribbean, South America, Central America. Spanish people who speak Spanish are very racist towards blacks. It's a part of their culture. Check it out. I want y'all to hear what Ricardo had to say about racism that comes from Latinos. And he's a Mexican himself, so for him to admit that, that's pretty solid, because most Mexicans deny this when it's only obvious.
Brown and black people coming together is impossible. It is impossible unless brown people, Mexican people collectively come together and confront the anti-blackness that is inherently part of our post-colonial culture. It's what I said in one of my previous videos. And the comment section is flooded with Mexicans, with Latinos talking about, oh, it's not impossible, Ricardo, you're just being negative. So I'm going to repeat it again, nice and slow, like a lowrider. Brown and black people coming together is impossible unless brown people collectively confront the anti-blackness that is part of our post-colonial culture. Do you know what that means? It means that how can a people that have anti-blackness in their culture come together with a people that are black? It is impossible for a collective of people to come together with another people, more so when these people, meaning us, have anti-blackness in our post-colonial culture. An example. When I was younger, about a decade ago or so, I used to protest with brown, Mexican, Chicano activists that a lot of times got together to chant brown and black unity. We got together with black people, marched in the street together, everything. It looked like brown and black people got along just well. In our history here in America, we actually have a history where brown and black people, Chicano organizations came together with the Black Panthers, etc. But if you study this history, no matter how much we brown and black people try to get together, somehow, some way, for whatever reason, it always falls apart. Decade after decade after decade, we're chanting the same thing. We brown and black people need to come together. I thought we already came together decades ago with Malcolm X, with the Black Panthers. So why do we have to chant brown and black unity? Why do we have to convince ourselves to get together if we already supposedly did decades ago? Well, I'm going to tell you why.
Shout out to CJ Rich Box, and he said we have some few of the brothers proud enough to cam up and speak on racism. You got way more reach than me. Just showing respect. Shout out to CJ Rich. Yeah, man, I cam up and talk about this. You know, I don't hide behind no avatar. It is what it is, man. I've been talking about this for a minute. But shout out to CJ Rich Boxing, and much love to Ricardo. See, one thing I want to tell y'all about black families, we wasn't raised to have hatred towards Mexicans. No, we were never taught that, right? But you got to think, you got the Mexican mafia, you got these different organizations, and they dictate to the Mexican communities. And a lot of that was anti-black racism, because you got to think the Mexican mafia formed a loose alliance with the Aryan Brotherhood. So if the Mexican mafia dictates the Mexican people, it's impossible to have an alliance, because the people who are dictating to Mexicans have an anti-black mindset. They're allies with white supremacists. They're allies with Aryan Brotherhoods and skinheads. So you can never have an alliance with a group of people who have an alliance with Aryan brothers and skinheads, right? So that'll never work. Their leaders that's incarcerated promote anti-black racism to them. And I'm gonna show you a video after this how essays in East LA firebomb these black people just for living in their community. And keep in mind, black people don't live in East LA like that. So it was maybe like 4 black people who lived over there. The Mexican gangbangers in that area got direct orders from the Mexican mafia in prison to firebomb these black people and run them up out of this community, because they don't want blacks living in their community. So the people who dictate to them are racist. They're buddies with white supremacists. So it's impossible to have a real alliance with black people at that point.
Because we collectively as Mexicans, Chicanos, are a people that have anti-blackness in our post-colonial culture. And if you're going to say, what does that even mean? Good. I'm glad you're finally asking questions instead of not understanding what that means, but still giving an input in the comment section. What it means is that we, as a collective of brown people, Mexicans, Chicanos, indigenous people of Mexico, we are a people that were colonized by Spaniards. And the Spaniards implemented the caste system. They implemented anti-blackness in our culture.
I told you the Spaniards are responsible for Latinos feeling like this. The Spaniards program Latinos to have this anti-black racism. It's a part of their culture. They were colonized by the Spanish, so that's what the Spaniards taught them. Shout out to Ricardo for keeping it a buck.
That's why it's important. Implemented Chicanos, indigenous people of Mexico. We are a people.
That's why when you go to Cuba, Puerto Rico, a lot of these places, any Spanish-speaking country, they have that anti-black mindset. It ain't just Mexicans, but you see it more in Mexicans, though. Although you're going to notice it amongst all Latinos.
That were colonized by Spaniards, and the Spaniards implemented the caste system. They implemented anti-blackness in our culture. That's why it's important to call it our post-colonial culture, because it has been our culture ever since colonized by Spaniards. Some of us as individuals, whether we are aware of it or not, there is anti-blackness in our collective views. And I'll give you an example. Since I used to go protest with brown people, with Chicanos, with Mexicans, and we got together with black people in the streets talking about brown and black unity. But then when the marching was over, when black people went that way, and we went this way, we would get together, just us brown people, just us Mexicans, Chicanos. And now that black people are not around, we're now speaking about our frustrations, our personal frustrations, such as, man, my daughter tried to bring a boyfriend the other day, and he was a black guy. Man, you ain't gonna bring no black guy in the house. So how can someone like this be out there protesting with black people, talking about brown and black unity, but then go home to the wife, to the
I'm
family?
gonna tell you how. Mexicans, for the most part, only want black and brown unity when there's something beneficial for them, like they can, attach themselves to the civil rights movement, or if black people fight for something that benefits all minorities, then they'll march with black people because there's a benefit to it. That's the only time they want some type of alliance. Or when you think about hip hop, Mexicans want to be a part of hip hop. So they say we need more black and brown unity. Blacks and browns should do music together. They're only saying that because they want a piece of hip hop. Anytime there's something beneficial for them, they'll pretend like they want some type of alliance with you. But it's only when there's something to gain. That's when they talk about this alliance stuff. So you got to be very careful, brothers, because if it ain't nothing in it for us, and they stand everything in the game, but we don't gain nothing, that's not a real alliance. They're using you at that point. That's not a fair exchange. People use blacks for what they can get out of us, but do they really like us? Absolutely not. Bless the like button. It ain't nothing.
So how can someone like this be out there protesting with black people, talking about brown and black unity, but then go home to the wife, to the family? You have no problem with your daughter dating a white guy or any other guy of any other race. But if it's a black guy, now it's a problem. And that's just one example. There's many examples of anti-blackness in our post-colonial culture. And these are the things that we need to confront. We need to address. And more importantly, we need to erase them. But how can we begin to erase? How can we begin to confront? How can we begin to address a problem if we claim and or pretend that it doesn't exist?
There you go. Mexicans pretend that it doesn't exist, so the problem will never get fixed. It is a waste of time trying to have black and brown unity. Black people need to spend more time trying to unify with one another. Strengthen your community by unifying with one another. Yeah, I met some cool Mexicans like Ricardo, but unfortunately, most Mexicans are not like Ricardo. Most Mexicans been indoctrinated to have hatred towards black people. The Mexican mafia, who dictates to Mexicans, who sends orders to the streets from prison. Do you know that some Mexican communities got word from prison? The Mexican mafia gave them instructions to attack black civilians in their community, to run blacks up out of Mexican neighborhoods. So they got orders from the Mexican mafia to attack random black citizens. I'm gonna show you some videos about the Hawaiian Gardens. That's a Mexican gangs that's very racist towards blacks. The Ramona Gardens in East LA, very racist towards blacks. They firebombed a few apartments in their community because they didn't want blacks living over there. That's how racist they are. But the cold part about it is Mexicans pretend like this racism doesn't exist. They can't play with my intelligence. I'm from Los Angeles. I've seen it with my own eyes. I witnessed this stuff firsthand. So they can't lie to me and pretend like it doesn't exist. I know it does. Then you got blacks in Compton and South Central gang banging. Bro, you got Mexicans overpopulating your community. What do you look like going to war with one another? That house that Miss Davis used to stay in, the Gonzalez family living there. The Smith family, they used to live down the streets. The Hernandez family living there. When you see these dudes doing these gang vlogs and hood vlogs in Los Angeles, the majority of them dudes don't even live in that hood no more, man. These dudes be coming from Lancaster, Moreno Valley, and Victorville to come to the hood for that one particular day to do a hood vlog. 85% of them dudes don't even live in the hood no more. It's a joke. It's all for the camera. But when you from Los Angeles, you know better. They don't live in that hood no more, homeboy. That community is like 75 to 80% Latino Mexican, 15 to 20% black at the most. And they got the nerve to be gang banging, talking about sliding on ops who look just like you. You're exterminating your people while being you're exterminating your people while being you're exterminating your people while being replaced by Latinos and Mexicans. It don't make any sense. That's why when I see these hood vlogs, I'm like, man, this is just dumb. You got grown ass men in their 30s and 40s who drive to the hood just to hang out to do nothing. Hanging out in front of a liquor store, hanging out at a park, hanging out in front of somebody's house. You done drove 30 and 40 minutes to get to LA just to hang out on a block. None of your homies own anything there. You don't have no businesses there. Your community is majority Latino. Now it's like, what are we doing? We look stupid. We look dumb.
Oh, well, what are you talking about, bro? We cool. I got black friends. My homies are black. But your daughter can't date a black guy because we're supposed to mejorar la raza. Remember? What we brown and black people have had is not brown and black unity. It's not brown and black coalition. What we've had has been us as a brown collective of people, Mexicans, Chicanos, whatever, is every time that we need help because we may be facing a systemic problem, we reach out to black people to see if they want to help. That's all we've ever had. There has never been brown and black unity, brown and black coalition. There's only been, hey, can y'all come over here with us? We need your help.
Because blacks are the blueprint for civil rights. So when Mexicans fight for civil rights, they use our blueprint. Or they want to use us as foot soldiers for their movement, for something that's beneficial for them. They've been using us. I got to be real. You can't name a law that Mexicans fought for that benefit all minorities. But we can name things that blacks fought for that benefits minorities. Blacks are the blueprint for we are the blueprint for civil rights in this country. So anytime you see a minority group talking about civil rights, they take a page out of our book every single time. And then this is another thing when you think about Mexicans, Southern California Mexicans in Cali. They go to prison and they had this alliance with white boys. But they want to be rappers and they want to come to the streets and talk about black and brown unity. How you going to have black and brown unity with a group of people who formed an alliance with peckerwoods and skinheads in prison? That don't make any sense. Wake up, black people, they playing you. How could you ever trust a Southsider or a Sereno when they got a loose alliance with whites in prison? I'm not saying they get along with whites all the time. They might have a scrimmage or two with them, but they still have a loose alliance with whites and peckerwoods. Keep in mind, they live next door to blacks in certain communities because you got communities where it's all Mexicans and blacks don't live there. But they have this loose alliance with white supremacists. But when they get out of prison, they talk about black and brown for hip hop. Once again, they use us for the civil rights movement. Now they want to use us and mimic our culture to get into hip hop. Man, if you people don't wake up and see what's going on, man, this is crazy. And you got dudes doing these dumbass hood vlogs talking about sliding on ops. You're only 8% of the blacks are only 8% of we're only 8% of Los Angeles overall population. And you got cats getting online talking about ops, talking about doing this and doing that. It don't make any sense. You look dumb. You're being replaced in your communities. Your community is 75 to 80% Latino Mexican. The majority of you casting these hood vlogs don't live there. You talking about riding on black people, victimizing other people who look like you, and you're only 8% of the overall city population. This is foolish. I don't want nothing to do with this Sambo foolish behavior. A lot of you dudes can't even provide for your family. You get online and you talk about gangbanging in prison all day. While blacks are being replaced all over Los Angeles. You got men in their 30s and 40s who get online and talk about gang banging in prison every day. Blacks are a dying breed in Los Angeles. At this point, it's just dumb.
Example, in 2024, when Donald Trump won and became president again, the stats show that the Latino vote was really high. And the reaction of black people collectively was, wait a minute, I thought y'all were with us. And so, not too many months later, all of a sudden, we have a bunch of ICE raids And all these Mexican people, these Chicanos, are being hit up by ICE, dragged out of their workplace, out of their houses, shoved into trucks, and being shipped and deported out of here. And many times, they're not even undocumented. They just look illegal. But that's a conversation for another day. Let me stick to the script. When we as a collective started protesting against ICE raids, what did black people say? We're gonna sit this one out. And what did we collectively say as a response to black people sitting this out? We said, oh, that's messed up. We supported you with Black Lives Matter. You see, what we are doing is telling black people, hey, we helped you guys out when you were facing something. Don't you think you guys need to help us out too, now that we need you? And of course, black people collectively responded, we were there when it was time to vote. You were not even there for yourselves. But that's not even the argument. My argument is the collective reaction of my people. Y'all black people are supposed to help us. We were there for you and such and this and that. You see? We never had brown and black coalition. All we've ever had is whenever we need help, we'll hit you guys up. That's all we ever had. And the reason why is because how can this collective of people ever come with that collective of people when this collective of people have anti-blackness in their post-colonial culture? So I'm going to say what I said on that last video again. It is impossible for brown and black people to come together until, let's highlight the word until this collective of people confront the anti-blackness in their collective post-colonial culture.
And that's never going to happen. Most Mexicans are in denial about that. Now, Ricardo is real, so he'll agree to that. He'll be honest about that. But most Mexicans are not going to be honest about that, bro. They got a loose alliance with Peckerwoods and white supremacists in prison. They pretend like it's not true when we know it is. They pretend like their culture doesn't have anti-black racism when it does, clearly. So there'll never be a black and brown alliance, because the only time Mexicans want to have a fake black and brown alliance when there's something beneficial for them. That's the only time they want to have this alliance. So it's not genuine and it is not real. So blacks and browns will never come together. It'll never happen. There's way too much anti-black racism that comes from their culture, and they pretend like it doesn't exist. At this point, they are playing with your intelligence. They're telling you you don't see what you really see.
The amount of anti-blackness in our post-colonial culture is madness. And the reason why a lot of us either are in denial about it or claim it doesn't exist is because anti-blackness is so normalized that a lot of times we don't even know that we're being anti-black. For example, I was hanging out with a group of Chicanos as we were protesting, ironically, with black people chanting brown and black unity. And when the protesting was over, we went to one of our Chicana friends' house because her mom was going to serve us some food after we had to spend a couple of hours out there in the streets running around. So when we got there, we're all hanging out, everything. How was the protesting, guys? Blah, 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 blah. As we were there eating, all of a sudden, our friend was having a conversation with her mom. And in this conversation, one of the aunties was also there. And they were gossiping about how somebody in this family's niece was married to a black dude. And in Spanish, the auntie said, ay, mija, esa pobre muchacha se casó con un pinche negro tan prieto, bien prieto. And I literally looked around to see if anybody would react. Nobody. Why? Because it's normalized. It's very normal to express ourselves this way and to feel about black people this way. We don't even think it's anti-black because it's so normal to be this way. Oh, Ricardo, but I don't think this way.
Yeah, see, we have dysfunction in our community that's normalized. But that's a whole nother story. But anti-black racism is normalized in their community. It's a part of their culture. It's been that way for so long to the point to where it's normal. You know what I mean? It's just a normal thing. Look at Nuri Martinez, the LA City Council. Look at the racist stuff they said behind. Look at the racist stuff they said about blacks behind closed doors, but they didn't realize that somebody was recording the conversation. And why did somebody record that conversation? Because that ain't the first time they was talking greasy about blacks. The person who recorded it said, "You know what? I'm gonna record them, man. They didn't heard these people say that so many times. They said when they get to talking greasy again, I'm gonna record it and put it out." That's a normal conversation for them. So when they got exposed for it, was I surprised? Absolutely not. You can tell they talk like that all the time. The difference is they happen to get caught. They just happen to get caught. But they've always been talking like that.
I'm a black man. You come together, but yet collectively, never mind you, in our post-colonial culture. And when one of us brings it up, we either deny that it exists or we don't see a problem with it. It's normalized, meaning that it's okay for us as a collective of people that if our daughters marry a white guy, that's perfectly fine. In fact, we encourage it because we want you to have a better life. And what way better than to get with a white person?
Well, when they said "Viva la raza," it was to whiten up the race, eliminate the black gene, and whiten up the race. You know, that's where that comes from. That mindset comes from. Like when Lefty Gunplay said, "Man, if my daughter came home with a black eye, I'd be like, what the what the hood?" But not once did he say it would be an issue if his daughter came home with a white man, because we already understand they don't have that hatred towards white people. Their hatred is towards black people. So when Lefty said that, he was being honest. He knows how the Mexican community feels about that. He know how they feel about that. Now, Jenny 6ix9ine is a Mexican female rapper. I guess she does corridos and I guess a little bit of hip hop. She did a live stream with Blueface, and this was like maybe like last week sometime, right? Man, that Mexican woman caught so much slack and caught so much hate just for being on the live stream with Blueface. So it's okay for you guys to mimic the culture, but it's wrong for a Latina to be with a black man and to sit on a black man's lap. That Jenny 6ix9ine chick, that Mexican chick, oh man, them Mexican guys showed their hatred for that. Oh, they was upset about the fact that she was in a video with Blueface. How dare she sit up there with that black guy? How dare she go public and show love and affection to this black man? The Mexican community was pissed off with Jenny 6ix9ine. Oh, they was pissed off about that. How dare you do this video with this black guy? That's another example right there. Then you got Mr. Capone. He ain't even a Mexican. He's from Pakistan or somewhere from the Middle East. He up there mad about the fact that she was in a video with Blueface. And they're like, dude, you ain't even Mexican. But he think he's Mexican, but he's not. So that right there was another example of how much anti-blackness comes from their culture. It's okay for them to, mimic hip hop, and it's okay for them to do rap music. But how dare this Latina get in a video with a black man? If you don't believe me, type in Jenny 6ix9ine with Blueface. Man, they got a lot of hatred from the Mexican community over that.
I'm not racist, but you better not bring home a black guy, though. I have nothing against those people, but I mean, I don't want no little black kids running around here with their little pelo malo. Anyway, I'll be back, y'all. I'm gonna go protest with my black brothers and sisters, because we need to bring us together. We can't come together, and we cannot call it brown and black coalition if we only reach out to black people when we need to use them to vote in our favor so they could come protest with us, because
I said that, man. The only time they want black and brown unity when it's something beneficial for them. When they want to make money off hip hop, they'll pretend to be cool with us because they want to be a part of hip hop. They want civil rights. They latch themselves onto that. They need us to vote in their favor. It's only time they want to be cool with us is when there's something beneficial for them. When these communities was majority black, these Mexicans were very cool. Once the demographics started to change and you started to notice that, hold on, there's more Mexicans over here, they ain't cool no more. A lot of them started giving you they behind the kiss. You've seen their true colors. But when Mexicans started moving into Compton, Watts, and places like that, when these communities was majority black, Mexicans were very respectful and nice because they needed us. They needed us to accept them in these communities that was once majority black. Once they got their numbers up, you seen their true colors. So the only time they pretend to be cool with you is when they need you for something. I'm glad that Ricardo was real enough to I'm glad that he was real enough to admit that.
We can't come together, and we cannot call it brown and black coalition if we only reach out to black people when we need to use them to vote in our favor so they could come protest with us because this system is discriminating against us. That is not coalition. That's exploiting a people, especially when we are practicing anti-black views in our household. And that is why you never see me in my videos or anything like that talking about brown and black unity, brown and black coalition, because I'm not somebody that's in denial about the problems in our post-colonial culture. Not only do we have anti-blackness in our post-colonial culture, we have anti-indigeneity in our post-colonial culture. So how can a people come together with another people if we ourselves suffer from internalized racism, internalized colorism, consciously or subconsciously practicing mejorando la raza? We need to confront the anti-blackness in our collective post-colonial macro culture. We have to. Otherwise, there will never be no brown and black coalition. It is impossible because the result wouldn't be coalition, wouldn't be unity. The result would be, hey, we'll hit you guys up when it's time to vote so you guys could come help us vote for our best interest. But for the meantime, black brothers and sisters, don't come around our daughters, please. And please, don't misconstrue what I'm telling you.
And they don't want you living in their neighborhood. Shout out to Ricardo. Let's get to this. Let's move on to the next clip. This right here happened in East LA.
7 Los Angeles men were charged with firebombing African Americans living in a heavily Hispanic area in 2014.
So you got people who said it's twisted. They didn't firebomb black areas. They fired, these communities are like 95% Mexican. I think it was like a handful of black people who lived in these projects, and the Mexicans firebombed them. And think about it like this. These Mexican gangs don't move unless they get permission from their big homies in prison. So this was orchestrated. It's not like it was a bunch of knuckleheads who did something stupid. No, this was orchestrated. Somebody gave them the okay to do this. There's a pecking order with Mexican gangs. They're not allowed to just do things because they want to do it. They got to get the okay from their big homies. This was sanctioned. It was premeditated. Hit the like button. This happened in Ramona Gardens, East LA.
7 Los Angeles were charged with firebombing African Americans living in a heavily Hispanic area in 2014. They were charged in a 10-count indictment unsealed in federal court Thursday. They were also charged for their roles in a racketeering enterprise that used violence and intimidation. Justice reporter Paula Reed is in Washington to discuss it all. Paula, the Justice Department
I don't know why blacks in Chicago didn't think it can happen. Democrats run that city. So if Democrats want to dump a boatload of Hispanics and black communities in Chicago, that's exactly what they're going to do. Malik Johnson said 2 to 3 years ago, black folks in Chicago didn't believe this stuff could happen in Chicago. Now their communities from the South and West Side are flooded with Hispanics. Yeah. When you vote for Democratic policies, and you're living in a sanctuary city, if they want to dump thousands of Hispanics and black communities, they'll do that. And black people can't do nothing to stop it. They're powerless. You're voting Democrat, and they're flooding your communities with these illegals. They did it to LA decades ago. Now they're doing it to Chicago. They're doing it in other cities across the country. But they've already done this in Los Angeles. Los Angeles was the blueprint. If it works in LA, then we'll do it in other cities. I don't know what made people think it couldn't happen in their city when you don't control nothing in that city. You don't own those blocks. You just live on those blocks. So if they want to replace you and flood your communities with thousands of immigrants, that's exactly what they're going to do. What black folks going to do to stop it? You have no political power. You continue to vote Democrat, the same people who flood your communities with these illegals.
This is one of the largest civil Were charged with firebombing African Americans living in a heavily Hispanic area in 2014. They were charged in a 10-count indictment unsealed in federal court Thursday. They were also charged for their roles in a racketeering enterprise that used violence and intimidation. Justice reporter Paula Reed is in Washington to discuss it all. Paula, the Justice Department says this is one of the largest civil rights indictments in local history. What are prosecutors alleging?
That's right, Elaine. This is one of the biggest cases that they've brought in under the civil rights statute in quite some time, which is also part of why it took so long to actually get this indictment, approximately 2 years. Prosecutors allege a barbaric plan to attack and intimidate African-American residents of the Ramona Gardens housing complex in East Los Angeles. Now, this complex is about 95% Hispanic and about 3% African-American. First, this group started with threats, and then they moved on to firebombs. And Elaine, they say this was a very sophisticated plot. They purchased disguises, gloves, bomb-making materials, and then they divided themselves into 2 teams, and everybody had a very specific task. One person, his job was to break the windows. The next person would light the firebomb, and the final guy would throw the firebomb inside the residence. They were even savvy enough to leave their cell phones behind to avoid being able to be traced by law enforcement.
So disturbing. These men, Paula, I understand, were also charged with racketeering, and the indictment says that families, including children, were among the victims. What can you tell us about that?
That's right. Many of the residents that were targeted, children were home. Many of them were minors. In fact, Elaine, one woman, she was sitting with her baby on the couch in the living room right before the firebomb was thrown into her house. Now, other families who weren't specifically firebombed, they reported that mixed-race children were verbally threatened by members of this gang. So it's clear that children were certainly not spared from this intimidation.
Do we know, Paula, has this gang been on law enforcement's radar before?
Yes, the Hazard Street Gang has been on law enforcement's radar since about the 1940s. They are described as a multi-generational Latino street gang that originated in East Los Angeles, and they were particularly focused on driving African-American residents off their turf. And the Ramona Gardens apartment complex is one area where they considered their turf. Now these 7 men face between a life sentence and 100 years in prison.
Disturbing case to hear about children.
Yeah, man. So they got the okay from the big homies. You know, they got the okay. They got permission to do this. Hit that like button, baby. Show some love to the show. You already know. Oh, man. They're going to say, Red, this is, oh, man, listen, bro. There was I think it was Doc Wilder Park. This is maybe like last year. Some black kid, I think he was like, maybe, I think he was like LGBTQ or something like that. He was attacked by a group of Mexican kids. They was calling him the N-word and saying all type of crazy stuff to him. Right? So you can't afford to ignore this. Right? Hit the like button. It ain't nothing, y'all. Yeah, I wanted to bring y'all this stream right here. And it's just crazy. Now, I'm gonna show y'all something. There's a Mexican grocery store called Vallarta, man. It's in 60s hood over there. And this was like, this area was like once, it was like real black at one point in time. Hold on one second. I don't know why this ain't showing up.
Los Angeles changing before your very eyes. Valaria has officially opened this on Slauson and Crenshaw. You hear the music? In the heart of this 60s neighborhood, Lamert Park, Baldwin Hills. It's changing right before your very eyes. And we over here fighting about who's black, who's marrying who, and not economically supporting your community. And when you don't economically support your community, guess what? Somebody else who can economically support will redefine your community, and you're gonna blame gentrification. How the hell are you gonna blame gentrification? You know what I mean?
Now, this is the Crenshaw district. This is in 60s hood. This was like a majority black area, right? But you got a Mexican grocery store over there now. You'll never see a black grocery store in East LA in a predominant Mexican community. That'll never happen. So when I tell you these dudes on social media who talk about gang politics all day, and these dudes be in their 30s and 40s, it's like, come on, man, you dudes look crazy. You're losing your communities, and you still focus on gang banging. Nobody's gonna win that war. That's a war that nobody's gonna win. But you love your hood so much that you will fight a losing battle. Your communities are being gentrified, and it's foolish for blacks to still be gang banging, and you're only 8% of the population, and your population continues to decline every year. Pretty soon, Los Angeles will be 5% black. Pretty soon, like you living in Seattle or Portland somewhere. That's the crazy part about it. The black population will continue to decline, and you got these old dudes who promote gang banging, promoting gang culture all day, bro. And it is like pretty soon it ain't gonna be no blacks left. In the early 2000s, let's say if you go back to like the 90s and early, you didn't see Mexicans in these communities like that. You might have seen one here, one there, but you didn't see Mexicans walking around deep in the Crenshaw district. You go to East LA, you're not going to see you're not going to see black businesses or black people in East LA. What I'm saying is this, fellas, and peep game. You can find areas in Los Angeles where there's a bunch of Mexicans and no black people, but you're not going to find one area in Los Angeles where there's a bunch of black people and no Mexicans. Everywhere you see black people in Los Angeles, you're going to see Mexicans. You're not going to see areas in Los Angeles that's black and not see no Mexicans. Mexicans have infiltrated every black community in Los Angeles. Blacks, we don't have our own communities, but Mexicans, they got their own communities. East LA is a predominant Mexican community. Huntington Park is a predominant Mexican community. The harbor area, mostly Mexican. The parts of San Pedro, Wilmington. And that's just to name a few. So black people don't have their own communities no more. You share your communities with Mexicans and Latinos, but Mexicans and Latinos got areas that they ain't got to share with blacks. Wake up and smell the bigger picture. Wake up to see the bigger picture. The crazy part about it is, man, these dudes are so dumb that they'll never wake up. They're lost.
Los Angeles changing before your very eyes. Valaria has officially opened this on Slauson and Crenshaw. You hear the music? In the heart of this 60s neighborhood, the Merck Park, Baldwin Hills. It's changing right before your very eyes. And we over here fighting about who's black, who's marrying who, and not economically supporting your community. And when you don't economically support your community, guess what? Somebody else who can economically support will redefine your community, and you're gonna blame gentrification. How the hell are you gonna blame gentrification? You know what I mean? But anyways, man, y'all go ahead and have a great day and keep blaming the white man, keep blaming gentrification, and keep letting Pookie and Ray Rays destroy your community so other people can buy it for pennies on the dollar. Peace.
All right, now this is the Hawaiian Gardens gang. Yeah, Compton used to be majority black. Compton is majority Mexican now. Yeah, true story. True story.
Down in the U.S., authorities handing down indictments against nearly 150 gang members. Raids are underway as federal and local officials go on the hunt for the suspects. Welcome back to Eyewitness News at 11:30. I'm John Gregory in for Philip Palmer.
And I'm Leslie Sykes. The Varrio Hawaiian Gardens street gang is accused of targeting blacks in a series of shootings and other crimes. Eyewitness.
These are civilians, homie. You don't even have black gangs in these areas. Like that video I showed you in East LA, you don't have no black gangs in those areas. You don't even have a sizable black black population over there. So this is what they do in these predominant Mexican communities. You know, hit the like button and show some love to the show, family.
Leo Stallworth is live in Lakewood, where a news conference is underway right now. Leo.
Exactly. Authorities are still in the middle of their news conference here in Lakewood, where they say they have made a huge takedown of a gang. They seized dozens and dozens of weapons. You can see the weapons. They're laid out on tables on either side of the podium. There are dozens and dozens of guns, all types of guns, handguns, rifles, assault rifles. Now, federal and local agents say they've indicted nearly 150 members of a predominantly Latino gang, mainly operating in the Hawaiian Gardens area. Agents say the members of the gang are accused of a series of shootings and other crimes. Authorities say federal racketeering indictments detailing guns, drugs, and more are related to the crimes. They say members of the gang are accused of targeting blacks in a number of attacks. Authorities say the motive was hate. Agents say they started tracking the gang about 4 years ago after a member of the gang was arrested and later convicted and sentenced to death in the murder of L.A. County Sheriff Deputy Jerry Ortiz.
Following the murder of Deputy Ortiz, the Sheriff's Department sought federal and local assistance to help destroy the Hawaiian Gardens gang. Working together, federal, local, and state law enforcement, we investigated the gang and its affiliates, and we now have the largest gang takedown in United States history. Today, we have unsealed 5 federal indictments that name a total of 147 defendants.
Man, them dudes ain't gonna talk about this. They gonna get on No Jumper or go to their own platforms and talk about black on black violence all day. They're not gonna talk about what's really going on for real, right? The Avenues gang committed a lot of hate crimes against blacks. Florencia 13 has committed a lot of hate crimes against blacks. You got Mexican gangs in Compton who's done a lot of hate crimes against blacks. You know what I mean? The Harbor 204 Street gang committed a lot of hate crimes against blacks. The Canoga Park, Alabama gang in the San Fernando Valley, they committed a lot of hate crimes against blacks. Azusa 13 in the Valley has committed hate crimes against blacks. I mean, the list goes on. A lot of these Mexican gangs are very racist towards black people. The thing about it is these areas, you don't even have blacks that live in these areas. So it's not like they're attacking black gang members. They're attacking black civilians who just happen to live in these communities where there's no blacks.
Morning, 63 of those defendants named in the indictment were arrested.
And authorities are still holding their news conference. They're in the Q&A portion of their news conference at this point. Authorities say if convicted, many of the gang members indicted could end up in prison for at least 20 years. Some of them could be locked up for life. Live in Lakewood, Leo Stallworth, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Leo, thank you. We continue to follow breaking news out of Ventura, where authorities...
All right, now check this out right here. I got another clip for you. So listen, man, the part of LA I come from, we ain't never had to deal with no stuff like this. Like,
welcome to War Stories. In this episode,
we didn't even know this was going on for real. Like, you know, in my part of LA, you know, but when you go to these areas far out where there's no blacks, that's where you hear about a lot of these hate crimes against random black people who are civilians.
But I'll be discussing Hawaiian Gardens 13. Bar Hawaiian Gardens 13, also known as VHG, is a Mexican-American gang located in Hawaiian Gardens, California. Hawaiian Gardens covers 1 square mile in southeast Los Angeles County and carries the distinction as the smallest city in the county. About 14,000 residents live in the town that was incorporated in 1964. In the 1920s, the area was rural, and the city took its name from a small refreshment stand, decorated with palm fronds and bamboo, that sold sandwiches and soft drinks spiked with moonshine. Most of the city's income comes from a gambling casino that generates about $9.2 million. Historically, their main rivals are Artesia 13 and the Chivas 13 gang, but they're most widely known for their hate crimes against black Americans. A Hawaiian Gardens Latino gang member was shot to death in the late 1980s. Locals blamed the killing on black gang members, though no one was ever arrested for that shooting. Allegedly in 1989, a few Long Beach Crips killed OG Buzzer from BAG. Buzzer was shot in the stomach with a 12-gauge shotgun and succumbed to his injuries. There was little fallout because black gangs had not taken root in the city, which had very few black Americans at the time. That changed as more black Americans moved to the city in the mid-90s. Although Hawaiian Gardens had a higher poverty rate than the county as a whole, it offered cheap housing, a multi-city school district, and a thriving commercial strip along Carson Boulevard. What the newcomers did not anticipate was the backlash from a local gang determined to keep blacks off its turf. From 1995 through 1997, More than 36 hate crimes were committed against Black Americans in Hawaiian Gardens. At first, the gang roughed up Black teenagers walking home from school. The attacks soon moved to Black American homes. Several homes were hit by Molotov cocktails. Gang members threatened Black residents as they left stores, walked on the streets near their houses, or ate at fast food restaurants. They repeated a simple message: "Get out of our neighborhood, Nick." Usually underscored by the most common racial epithet. Virgil Henry never had a chance to get out of the neighborhood. He lived in Van Nuys and was headed to his parents in Hawaiian Gardens. When he stepped off a bus onto Carson Boulevard, he was walking to his parents' home when at least 10 Latino adults and teenagers chased him. He ran across 4 lanes of traffic into the parking lot of a busy strip mall. A driver that was stopped at a traffic light told police they heard Virgil shout repeatedly, "What did I do?" As he ran, he was gaining distance on his attackers until he tripped in the parking lot, just behind a coffee shop. Shoppers saw the mob, which included women and men, stomp and kick Virgil, then bash his head with an aluminum baseball bat. A witness testified that when she stood over Virgil to assist him, he appeared shocked that a white person came to his aid.
Yeah, see, this was Hawaiian Gardens, man. Like I say, like a lot of Black people from South Central never even been to Hawaiian Gardens. Like I really don't even know too much about this side of town. I never had no reason to go out there. I just heard about it from all the hate crimes that was going on out there.
Prosecutors gathered enough evidence to pursue charges against only one of the attackers. Carlos Lucero, who was seen striking Virgil with the bat, was convicted of the murder in 1999 and is serving 16 years to life in prison. Carlos Lucero was not only a VHG gang member, but was also the son-in-law of a Mexican mafia lieutenant. Let's rewind to the previous year. Martin Hammond was the first hate murder victim. He was gunned down one day in October 1996 as he walked on Norwalk Boulevard. Martin had grown up in Hawaiian Gardens. He was well known from his days as a football star at Artesia High School, but his local hero status did not spare his family from violence. Their house, which had been shared by 4 generations of the family since 1980, and 2 cars were set ablaze. The vandalism was followed by Martin Slane. Rudy Villa, from the hate gang, was convicted in 1998 of the murder. Another VHG gang member was awaiting trial in the third of Hawaiian Gardens hate murders. Like Virgil Slane, it occurred in 1997. Demario Young was shot just after getting out of his van in front of a relative's apartment building. Alberto Martinez, also known on the street as Badger, was arrested after he shot himself in the leg in a separate incident. Police tests showed that Alberto was wounded by the same pistol used to kill Demario. The city's hate crimes have happened both in spite of and often because of its increased integration. In one case recorded by the County of Human Relations Commission, a Black man was beaten while washing a car. When his attackers found out the car actually belonged to a Latino friend, they beat the Latino man for being friends with a Black American. At Way Out Ministries, which is
So that's what that's what's going on in some of these communities, right? And some people will say, "Man, what are Black people doing about it?" Oh man, I'm just showing you the hate crimes. I'm not gonna get into all that other stuff. I'm just showing you the racism, right? But don't think that nothing ever happens behind this, because it does. That right there. I'm just showing you some of the right now. Let's go to Compton real quick. These are some hate crimes that took place in Compton.
LA County Sheriff's deputies are investigating 2 hate crimes in Compton. In one case, authorities say gang members repeatedly terrorized an African-American family. New at 6, NBC4's Michelle Valles live in Compton. Michelle, what are residents telling you tonight about what happened?
Well, they simply say the demographics here are changing. For instance, this is an African-American Baptist church behind me that is now in the middle of what is now a predominantly Hispanic neighborhood. And they say recently a Mexican street gang tagged that church, and deputies say it's more hate crimes that's happening between those 2 groups.
It's like you might as well just put a hood on your head and ride around and just say, we don't like Black people. I mean, it'd be better like that.
LaFrancis says the racial street war continues in Compton, differing from block to block. Sharon Smith says her Black neighbor couldn't even walk home one time.
He was trying to come home after work, but he was chased home by Mexican Americans.
Then there was New Year's Eve, 153rd Street. Deputies say Mexican gang members threatened a Black man walking home, beat him up. 30 minutes later, up to 20 Mexican gang members surrounded his home, threw a beer bottle through the window, shouted the N-word, and told him they couldn't live there because of their race. These 2 armed gang members were arrested for the reported hate crime.
They're strictly from gangs, exactly. And
Man, hey, listen, man, whatever Black gang in Compton lives next to them, man, y'all should have took care of business. Spray painting on a church, my God. This is what I mean by, like, when you hear about stuff like that gang banging is out of the window now. If somebody's attacking your people just because of their skin color, then gang banging needs to go out of the window. You got to get militant and protect your people. If you're going to fight for something, that's something to fight for if you're going to be fighting. You know, not going back and forth with another group of black people and you guys are losing your population in the city. Compton ain't even majority black no more. Compton is majority Latino Mexican. So what are you really fighting for? You got people committing hate crimes against your people and you still got time for gang banging? Trust and believe, I understand gang culture. I grew up in it, but at some point I grew out of that because I realized how dumb and counterproductive it is. You're losing the black population. The black population continues to decline. But you got these cats who get on social media all day to talk about gangbanging because that's the only thing they can talk about. They ain't got nothing else to talk about besides gangbanging. It's crazy.
We're doing our beer bottle through the window, shouted the N-word, and told them they couldn't live there because of their race.
Check this out, right? Look at these cowards. Like if you black, I don't know what black gang lives next door to these Mexicans. If y'all didn't take care of business, that makes the whole race look weak, right? Tagging on a black church, attacking black civilians, and you still got time for gang banging?
Even walk home one time.
He was trying to come home after work, but he was chased home by Mexican Americans.
Then there was New Year's Eve, 153rd Street. Deputies say Mexican gang members threatened a black man walking home, beat him up. 30 minutes later, up to 20 Mexican gang members surrounded his home, threw a beer bottle through the window, shouted the N-word, and told them they couldn't live there because of their race. These two armed gang members were arrested for the reported hate crime.
They're strictly from gangs, exactly, and we're doing our best.
It's not a gang thing. It's a it's a power thing.
And nothing new, LaFrancis says, who claims he was jumped by 10 Latinos in 10th grade. But what is changing are the demographics and the crackdown on hate crimes in the area. But what's really needed, according to him,
There's no African-American leaders trying to bring the two together.
You can't bring nobody together. All you can do is fight back and protect your people. What are you talking about bringing somebody together after they done already committed hate crime? I don't want to come together with I don't want to come together with nobody that's committed hate crimes against my people. No, I don't need to come together. What you need to do is stand with your people and protect one another so stuff like this don't happen no more.
in all fairness, I also found lots of unity in parts of Compton, but it's incidents like this that give a black eye on the community. The community says it's time for more multi-ethnic.
Now, you're going to have Mexicans who say they don't feel like this, right? They're going to say that, right? But at the same time, you got to understand a lot of Mexicans do feel like this. You got to understand a lot of them do.
Good afternoon. I'm Latanya Ganter, Ganter, Vice President of the Compton NAACP, and I have a statement.
Hold on one second. And this is Compton, man. And like spray painting on the church. You know what I mean? A black church. You don't see black gangs going around spray painting on no Mexican churches. This is crazy. Hit the like button, family. It is what it is.
Which reads, the Compton NAACP will work diligently with law enforcement, city elected officials, clergy, and other organizations and the community to ensure that this kind of terrorism does not continue. These individuals should be charged with a hate crime and given the maximum sentence allowed under the law. It is sickening to think that in 2013, we have individuals who can think that they can tell someone where they can and cannot live. We have to stand with the community with a united voice and to send a clear message to gang violence everywhere. The unity between black and brown has to be a common thread for the peace of our neighborhoods. We will not tolerate injustices on any level by anyone. So please come out this Saturday, February 2nd at 12 p.m. in front of the Compton Courthouse, and we will support and help us to support this community, and this rally is against hate crimes and any type of racism. The Compton NAACP is about equality and justice for all people in our community. Thank you, and that's from our president, Paulette.
And don't get it twisted, man. You got hate crimes going on everywhere, man. Jacksonville, Florida, white guy shot up a Dollar General full of innocent black people, man. And just this happened like in 2023, Buffalo, New York. A white supremacist went in a grocery store full of black people and unalived like 10 black people. So you got people talking about Los Angeles. You got racism going on in your backyard. You guys are just not talking about it. I'm just real enough to talk about what goes on in my city and my county. You know, I'm real enough to talk about the racism that goes on in the state that I come from. But don't get it twisted for 1 second. Hate crimes are going on everywhere. I'm just showing you what's going on in Cali. Now check this out.
Wilson, a black 43, had about 20 to 40 active members. Avenues 43 was closely tied to another clique, Avenues 57, which claimed the area near grew. The more violence followed. The gang would use whatever means necessary to drive African Americans out of Highland Park, including threats, beatings, robberies,
Now, this is
shootings.
the Avenues gang, right? They was attacking black people for just living over there too. And you don't have no black gangs in that area. You don't even have a sizable black population in that area. But they were just attacking random black civilians because they didn't want blacks living in their community.
And even murder. They wanted to make sure black residents couldn't walk the streets, spend time in the lorry to drive African Americans out of Highland Park, including threats, beatings, robberies, shootings, and even murder. They wanted to make sure black residents couldn't walk the streets, spend time in the local parks, or even pass through the neighborhood. Celeste Schaefer lived in Highland Park with her family from 1987 until 1997, and during that decade, they were relentlessly harassed by members of the Avenues gang. Celeste herself couldn't even run simple errands without being harassed. Walking to the corner store or stopping at a taco truck meant being confronted with slurs. Gang members would call her a black bitch and tell her that she didn't belong in the neighborhood and needed to leave. Her children were also constant targets. Her daughters, Ebony and Celeste, were chased into a store by Avenues members who were screaming racial slurs at them. But it was her son, Don Petrie, who suffered the most. Don and his friends were harassed relentlessly. He was chased, assaulted, and constantly called racial slurs, with Avenues members making it clear that he wasn't welcome in their neighborhood. Years later,
they didn't take over no hoods. These hoods are Mexican neighborhoods. What I'm trying to tell you is these are predominant Mexican communities. These are not black communities. But if they see a black person in these neighborhoods, they'll trip. East LA ain't never been no black community. Hawaiian Gardens ain't never been no black community. The Avenues gangs over here, this ain't never been no black community. I'm just showing you what Mexicans do in predominant Mexican communities, how they attack random black people. So these were never black neighborhoods that got taken over. Now, when you think about Compton, it's the demographics are changing, right? Compton used to be majority white at one point in time. Then it became majority black. Now it's majority Latino. So it changed over the years. You know? But if you go to Miami, Miami is majority Latino. Latinos took over Miami a long time ago. Yeah, blacks you got certain sections of the city where blacks are, but Miami is majority Latino for sure. And the Cubans down there are very racist towards blacks.
Don would identify Gilbert, Alejandro, and Porfirio as some of the gang members who had personally harassed and attacked him. Once at the Montecito Recreation Center, Don and his black friends were playing basketball inside, while Avenues members gathered outside at the park for a meeting. The man running the gym warned them to stay inside, because in his words, there were going to be problems. Eventually, Don and his friends slipped out the back to avoid getting harassed.
I don't see why black people would even move in these communities, right?
But he never felt safe enough to go there again. Another time, Don and his friend Christopher Bowser were walking through a park when an Avenues member pulled a gun on them, telling them to get out of the neighborhood and never come back. Christopher himself endured more than 5 years of harassment and threats from Avenues members because
listen, homie, I would have been got a strap. I would have been got a strap and did something. My thing is this, I'm not going to, You're not going to victimize me and I'm just going to sit around and wait for you to do something. He should have got a strap a long time ago to protect himself or just moved out of the community. I would have left the community, but I would have listened, homie, you're not going to harass me when you feel like it. You know, the next time you try something like that, I'm gonna be ready. I'm not gonna just sit around and wait. I'm not gonna sit around so I can become some victim. I don't see how he stayed over there for 5 years and just allowed this to happen. I don't care. Even if you are a civilian, at the end of the day, you're still a man. You ain't got to be a gangbanger to put in work because you're still a man at the end of the day. I'm not gonna wait around for somebody to victimize me. No, sir.
In their words, he was black and had the audacity to walk through the neighborhood like it was his. He was beaten, called racial slurs. He was black. Years of harassment and threats from Avenue's members. Because in their words, he was black and had the audacity to walk through the neighborhood like it was his.
And this is a real story, right? This is just another dude narrating it. I could have showed you the story from Gangland, but they would have hit me with a copyright. But this is a real story. I heard about this years ago.
He was beaten, called racial slurs, and told to stay out of Highland Park. But Christopher refused to move away or spend time in the area. At various bus stops around Highland Park, Don was threatened, told he wasn't welcome, and was even shot at. He stopped using those stops entirely. Outside a movie theater, Avenue's members hurled slurs at him and his girlfriend, threw trash cans at them, and ordered them out of the neighborhood. He never returned to that theater. The same happened at a grocery store. Don would also be harassed by gang members who were circling the neighborhood in their cars. On one occasion, Alejandro jumped out of a car with a gun and chased Don all the way back to his house. In another, gang members drove onto the wrong side of the street just to try to run him over. At a separate time, they tried running over both Don and Christopher when they were walking together. Outside a liquor store, Avenue's members threw bottles at them while shouting slurs and demanding they get out of the neighborhood. Don came home one day to find 2 chalk body outlines scrawled across his driveway, along with the words Avenue's 43rd, N-word stay out, and we don't want you here, N-words. By 1997, the relentless harassment and constant fear became too much. Terrified that her children might one day be killed,
Man, why would you live over there? You got children. Why would you live in a racist community like that and you got children? That's crazy. You should have been left that community. That don't make no sense.
Celeste made the decision to move her family out of Highland Park. Around 1997 or 1998, Alejandro, Porfirio, Jesse, and another Avenue's member, Merced Cambero Jr., were driving through Highland Park when they saw a black man using a payphone outside Ramona Hall. One of them pointed him out and said, "Look at this N-word on the phone." They stopped the car and walked over to confront him. Porfirio struck the man in the head with a dent puller. The man tried to run, but the gang members chased him down, and when they caught up with him, they continued beating him. In 1998, at Sycamore Park, Jose and Merced were walking Jose's dog when a black student passed by. Merced suddenly set the dog on him, shouting, "Get him, get the N-word." Jose was also yelling racial slurs at the student. Luckily, the student managed to escape before the dog could reach him, and he wasn't physically harmed. In 1999, while hanging out at Montecito Park, Jesse, Gilbert, and Alejandro spotted a homeless black man walking through the park. They looked at each other and said, "Look at this N-word," before attacking him. During the beating, Gilbert pistol whipped the man so hard that his gun went off, and the sound of the gunshot caused them to scatter and run. There were other incidents at Montecito Park as well. Once, Avenue's members stormed into the gym where African Americans were playing basketball. They shouted slurs at them and eventually chased them out of the gym and into the street. On the night of April 18th, 1999, Gilbert, Merced, Alejandro, Fernando, Jesse, and Jose piled into a stolen Chevy van, carrying with them spray paint and a police scanner.
This is crazy, man. See, I always give you guys the receipts to show you how racist Mexicans really are. Now, they're going to say not all of us, but a whole lot of them are like this. And I knew about this story a long time ago. I'm from LA, so I heard about these stories. I'm just showing you guys the videos to let you know. But yeah, man, I've heard about these stories in the late 90s and the early 2000s in the Avenues area. That's like the northeast part of LA. Black people don't even live over there. I mean, you might have like a handful of black people that live in these communities, but these are not black communities. These communities are like 90 to 95% Mexican.
Their plan for the night was to commit crimes, spray paint walls, and maybe even find some ops. Gilbert had
These are civilians, man. These ain't no gangbangers. These are just regular civilians, right? These ain't street dudes, right? So that's why they're getting chased out. These are not violent people. These are just regular everyday squares that they're picking on.
9mm Ruger handgun. Merced had a .357 revolver, and Jose had a shotgun. Alejandro drove the van with Fernando riding shotgun. They spent hours cruising through Highland Park, stopping now and then to scrawl graffiti on walls. Eventually, they decided to call it a night and started heading back toward 43rd Avenue. But around 3:30 a.m., as they turned onto 52nd Avenue, Alejandro spotted Kenneth Wilson, a black man, trying to park his Cadillac after dropping off his nephew, Julius Williams, who had been with him at a club earlier that night. Pointing Kenneth out, Alejandro reportedly said, "Hey, you guys want to kill an N-word?" The others agreed without hesitation. Kenneth wasn't an op, and they didn't know him at all. Their main issue with him was his race. Alejandro double-parked the van. Gilbert, Merced, and Jose then jumped out with their guns, while Alejandro, Fernando, and Jesse stayed behind in the van to act as lookouts. At first, Kenneth's Cadillac pulled away, but then he circled back, making a U-turn and driving slowly down 52nd Avenue toward the van. Then the three opened fire. Merced fired once with his .357, hitting Kenneth in the back of the neck. Jose unloaded 5 shotgun blasts into the Cadillac, and Gilbert fired at the car twice with his Ruger. The Cadillac swerved and crashed into a parked car. Merced's single bullet had severed Kenneth's carotid artery. He died within minutes. Afterward, the shooters ran back to the van and drove off to Ulysses Street, where Gilbert and Alejandro lived. On the way, Merced bragged that he shot first and hit Kenneth, saying that by the time the other guys fired their guns, Kenneth was already dead. Gilbert hid the guns at his house while Alejandro and Fernando...
See, these are just, and these people are not gangbangers. These were just racially motivated attacks. You know, it's not like I seen you, I wanted to take something. No, these are just racially motivated attacks. Right? And I can show you different Mexican communities that this happened in. I showed you the Hawaiian Gardens. I showed you the Ramona Gardens in East LA. This is the Avenues in Northeast LA. I showed you the video in Compton where I think it's like the one, I don't know what particular Mexican gang that was in Compton who spray painted on that church. But yeah, man, I don't be making this stuff up when I be telling y'all these stories.
Got rid of the van. When the police got to the crime scene, they noticed that the Cadillac had a bunch of bullet holes and shotgun damage.
Don't come in here with that trolling. You guys get along with racist rednecks in prison. The Mexican mafia has anti-black politics. Don't come up in here with that nonsense. You ain't never seen black people firebomb a Mexican house because they lived in a black community. You ain't never seen that. The Hawaiian Gardens firebomb black people just for living over there. The Ramona Gardens, the same thing. You can't name one community where blacks firebombed a Mexican's house just because they were Mexican. Get up out of here. You're selling a fantasy. You keep lying in my comments, I'm gonna boot you out of here because clearly you're lying. Nobody's more racist than Mexicans in Los Angeles.
The rear window was shot out. There were bullet marks on the trunk and the right rear side of the car, and a bullet hole in the rear passenger side door window. Inside the car, investigators...
You got areas in Northern California where they're racist too. You know, outside of the Bay Area, you got areas where they're racist towards blacks too. So it ain't just different. Like what I'm saying is you don't see this happening. You don't even see stuff like this happening in LA where there's a large black population. In the part of Los Angeles where I come from, we've never had these issues. We've never had Mexicans firebomb black people in the part of LA that I lived in because there's too many blacks over there for that to happen. But in these predominant Mexican areas like Northeast LA and East LA, Hawaiian Gardens, you don't have blacks over there. You don't have black gangs over there. So that's where they do stuff like this. That's where you see stuff like this happening. These are areas where you don't have black people. You don't have a significant black population in these areas.
Found shotgun pellets, fragments of bullet jackets, and shell casings. A firearms examiner later confirmed the 3 different weapons that were used in the shooting. After the shooting, Gilbert told his girlfriend, Anita Montano, that
you guys attacked the Aleteros. I can show you a video right now where Mexican gang members tax the vendors in their community. That's not racism. If you got a bunch of teenagers who rob somebody for money, that's not like the black community came together and said, y'all need to rob the paleteros or whatever y'all call them. You guys tax the vendors in your own community. Don't be a hypocrite, Hector, or whatever your name. Hold on, what your name is? Hold on, don't be Alberto. Don't be a hypocrite. Mexican gangs tax the small Mexican businesses in their community. They make them pay taxes. Stop it. You guys extort your own people, but got the nerve to call black people racist because a couple of teenagers robbed the corn man. Man, stop it.
the police were looking for him for the murder and called Kenneth a derogatory racial slur in Spanish. Just 2 months before Kenneth was killed, on February 21st, 1999, Renee and Jaime Cerda were murdered by Saul Laudello, a member of the White Fence Gang. Saul was later convicted and sentenced to life in prison without parole for those killings. After the Cerda murders, Saul testified that he sold several firearms to Gilbert, who he first met in county jail back in 1997. Among the guns he sold was a 9mm Ruger. Gilbert himself admitted that he bought the weapon from Saul, and Jose also recalled Gilbert telling him that he'd gotten the 9mm from a White Fence Gang member he met in prison in 1997. Ballistics confirmed that the same 9mm Ruger Gilbert used in Kenneth's murder was the same weapon used in the Cerda killings. The bullets and shell casings from Kenneth's Cadillac were fired from the very same Ruger that was used to kill the Cerdas. In July 2000, Tanya Alleman and her black boyfriend Mike Sampson were walking through Highland Park when a car full of Hispanic men drove past and yelled a racial slur in Spanish at Mike. The couple kept walking, but the car quickly pulled over. 2 men jumped out, and one of them was holding a red metal club. As they approached Mike, one shouted, "F***ing N-word," and threatened to kill him. Tanya ran across the street to call the police. When she looked back, she saw Mike being beaten with the club. After the assault, the attackers ran back to their car and sped off. Later, Tanya and Mike gave police a detailed description of the men and their vehicle. That same night, an LAPD officer spotted a car that matched the description and pulled it over.
Nobody commits more hate crimes in Los Angeles than Mexicans. That's just the truth. You guys can get mad all you want, but the numbers prove everything that I'm saying. Nobody commits more hate crimes than them. When black people rob somebody, it's not like black people say, we're just going to rob Mexicans, right? If you in a black community and you looking like a lick, you're going to get robbed. Nobody said that we're only going to, black people never said we're only going to rob Mexicans. No, they rob black people too. If you got a nice chain on or something of value, you're going to get robbed in these communities as well, especially if these gangbangers catch you slipping. But it was never racially motivated. These Mexicans got direct orders from their homeboys in prisons to attack random black civilians in their communities. They call it ethnic cleansing. Ethnic cleansing. That's what they call it. Let's rid our community of black people. You've never heard black people say, we're going to rid our community of Mexicans. We're going to attack random Mexicans to run them out of our community. Black people ain't never came up with a plan to do that. So trying to compare what you guys do to what we do is not even comparable. Blacks ain't never came together and say, you know, we're going to firebomb random Mexican people houses in black communities. We're going to attack random Mexicans just to get them up out of our communities. We've never done that. Never. So trying to compare a corn man being robbed to some teenagers, trying to compare that to a group, trying to compare that to Mexican gangs who commit hate crimes all across the city, you sound crazy.
One passenger bolted and ran, but the driver, Fernando, stayed behind and identified himself. Inside the car, officers found two.
Your girl Shay, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know, you're not from LA, you don't know what you're talking about. Black people ain't never firebombed Mexican houses just for living in black communities. That's never happened. But you got black people who houses or in apartments who got firebombed just for living in Mexican communities. You don't know what you're talking about. Be quiet and take notes. Maybe you can learn something.
Police scanners in the same red metal club that Tanya described. At a separate incident, Jesse and Gilbert saw a black teenager standing outside a Jack in the Box in Highland Park. Jesse walked up to him and said, "What's up?" an N-word before pulling a knife and trying to stab him. The teenager spotted the blade just in time and ran straight into the street and into oncoming traffic to get away. Another resident, Dagan Wallace, also became a target of Avenue's harassment. On September 3rd, 2000, Dagan was in his yard listening to music when several gang members walked up to him and made it clear who they were. One pulled out a gun, pointed it at him, and said, "What's up, N-word?" Terrified, Dagan ran inside and called the police. A short time later, he was confronted again, this time as he was getting out of his car. The gang hurled more slurs, even calling him a monkey. In the fall of 2000, Jimmy Israel was living in Highland Park with his brother and sister, Patricia. The siblings often used walkie-talkies to stay in touch, but their conversations were constantly hijacked by voices identifying themselves as Avenue's members. On one occasion, the intruder cut in and said, "You N-words need to get off our block. We are going to burn down your house." Similar threats were made again and again.
You ain't never seen no black gangs doing no stuff like this. Black gangs attack rival Mexican gangbangers. And sometimes innocent Mexicans might get hit in the crossfire, but blacks ain't never went out specifically to target innocent Mexican people just for living in black areas. You've never seen black gangs do that. When black gangs attack Mexican people, they're 9 times out of 10, they're looking for rival Mexican gang members. They don't just go around attacking random Mexicans who live in their community for the hell of it. They don't do that. You know what I mean? Yeah, some teenagers might rob a car man, but the same teenagers rob black people. They'll rob anybody if they catch you slipping, so that ain't racially motivated. You don't see blacks saying we're going to attack random Mexicans just for living in our community. You've never seen black gangs in Los Angeles do that, but you do see Mexican gangs. You do have Mexican gangs who do that. That's the difference. Because Mexican gangs take direct orders from their homies in prison. They told these Mexican gangs to eliminate blacks in your community. You know, run these blacks out of your community. It's called ethnic cleansing. That's what they were doing. They got word from their homies in prison. See, black gangs don't take orders from prison gangs. Black gangs are independent. Mexican gangs are controlled by the Mexican mafia. That's the difference. They take orders from their homies in prison. Black gangs don't take orders from prison gangs. Black gangs are independent. Mexicans have dictators. Mexican gangs operate under dictatorship. If they big homies in prison tell them they got to eliminate blacks in their community, that's exactly what they got to do. That's common knowledge at this point. It's been going on for too long. It ain't no secret. I'm not saying every Mexican gang does this because, of course, not every Mexican gang does this, but you do have a lot. There are a lot of Mexican gangs who do. You have a lot of Mexican gangs who do this. Not all of them, but some of them will. The Hawaiian Gardens, known for hate crimes against black people. The Avenues gang, known for hate crimes against black people. The Florencias was committing hate crimes against blacks in certain areas. You know, the Azusa 13 committed hate crimes against blacks. They're in the Valley. The Canoga Park gang in the Valley, Mexican gang, committed tons of hate crimes against blacks. The 204th Street gang in the Harbor area committed hate crimes against blacks. And the list goes on and on. Hit the like button, man, and show some love. Make sure that you guys share this content because I'm giving you the facts.
Jimmy eventually realized that the people breaking into their calls were the Hispanic men who gathered regularly at a house just down the street. Then in October
Like I
2000,
said, the part of LA that I'm from, we've never experienced nothing like this because in our area, this would never happen. You know, blacks gonna strap up and take care of business. If they've ever tried this stuff in the part of LA that I'm from, like I said, this stuff be happening in areas where you don't even have black gangs. You don't have black gangs in this area. You just got a bunch, not even a bunch, you got a handful of black civilians who live in these areas. So they choose to attack these random black civilians. They're not even attacking gang members. These are random civilians who happen to be squares that just live in this who just happen to live in those communities. These are everyday working black people. These are squares. These are not street people. Then you're getting attacked by Mexicans who are calling you the N-word, telling you to get up out of their barrio. That's crazy. But hey, man, that's anti-black racism.
the threats turned into violence. Patricia and Jimmy's nephew were riding bikes.
Long Beach too. The Longos, right. Shout out to Cassius Cable Guy. The Mexicans in Long Beach, the Longos, very racist. They write NK on the wall. N-word killer. That's what they write on the wall in Long Beach. The Longos. So a lot of them essays in Long Beach are very racist.
Near that same house the gang members gathered at. Then Alejandro came out, knocked Patricia off her bike, and began beating and stomping on her. Jimmy quickly rode his bike to assist her and rushed over to help, but Alejandro pulled a box cutter and swung it at him. Jimmy dodged the blade and took cover.
I know it's not the hard-working everyday Mexican people who are doing this. These are Mexican gangbangers who are doing this. That's true. That is true. You're right about that, Alejandro. These are Mexican gang members committing these hate crimes. These are not regular everyday Mexican people. That's a fact. I agree with you on that because that's true.
Behind the car, while another gang member continued assaulting his sister. During the attack, the man with the box cutter shouted, "I am tired of seeing you N-words on my block. It's time for you N-words to get out of here. I don't want you over here." When Jimmy got home, his mother called the police.
Don't get it twisted. In LA, most violence against blacks are blacks unaliving other blacks. Most of the time when it's a Mexican losing their life is other Mexicans. So for the most part, crimes are Mexican on Mexican and black on black. But don't get it twisted. You do have crimes that happen between both races at the same time. Black on brown, black on brown, brown on black. That happens, but for the most part, it's blacks unaliving blacks and Mexicans unaliving Mexicans for the most part. But at the same time, you do have cases where things like this happen. There's cases where things like this happen, and it's not uncommon at the same time. It's not as common as black on black violence. It's not as common as Mexican on Mexican violence, but we can't ignore the fact that these things do happen.
But even the responding officer faced harassment. When he went to the gang house to investigate, members mocked him, calling him an N-word while laughing. Pedro Avalar, a Latino man, had been living in Highland Park since around 1994. He was close friends with Christopher Bowser. Although Pedro knew about the avenues and was even friendly with some of its members, his friendships with black people made him a target. Whenever Pedro walked around Highland Park with Christopher or his other black friends, Avenue's members would go after him. They called him an N-word lover and warned that if he didn't stop hanging around with black people, they would kill him. Once, when Pedro and Christopher were driving through the neighborhood in Pedro's truck, a group of Avenue's members pulled up alongside them, punched Christopher in the face, and shouted racial slurs at Pedro. On October 26th, 2000.
Damn, so the Mexican dude, he can't have black friends. You forcing him to be racist like y'all? And it'd be one thing if these blacks was over there trying to harm Mexicans. These black people just minded their business. They wasn't trying to start no gangs. They wasn't selling no drugs over there. These were just regular black people who lived over there. Pedro can't even have a black friend. They said, Pedro, you keep hanging around these blacks. Yeah, we got something for you.
Christopher himself was attacked by Porfirio and Alejandro while waiting at a bus stop on Figueroa Street. He reported the assault to LAPD, but initially refused to press charges, scared that Avenue's members would retaliate. That changed when Alejandro later pulled out a gun and pointed it at him. Christopher then decided to cooperate. On November 30th, he identified Alejandro in a photo lineup. On December 3rd, Alejandro was arrested for the assault. Not long after, Christopher called Angela Cortez, the
Listen, man, if you call the police on them and you're still living over there, you got a target on your back. They're gonna get you. They're gonna get you. Once word get out that you snitched on them and you still live in a hood, oh yeah, it's a target on your back. They're gonna get you.
mother of his daughter. Angela recalled that he sounded anxious and uneasy. The call came about a week after their daughter's birthday, and Christopher told her he wanted to see his child because the avenues were after him. Only 8 days after Alejandro's arrest, Christopher was waiting at the same bus stop he was attacked at weeks
You mean to tell me you sitting on a bus stop after all these random attacks? You're sitting on a bus stop over there, man. Something is wrong with this dude. This dude had no street smarts. You're still on a bus stop. You're sitting on the bus stop, and you've already been confronted by these dudes several times. Man, this dude is crazy.
earlier. This time, Porfirio walked up and shot him several times in the head, killing him instantly. Just 5 days later,
I remember that the black dude named Bowser, he got unalived by the Mexicans, bro. I don't know what made him decide to sit on the bus stop. You should have left that community, bro. You don't have no backup. You're one man over there. You had no means to protect yourself. You're outnumbered. It's a bad situation. You should have left that community.
told her he wanted to see his child because the avenues were after him. Only 8 days after Alejandro's arrest, Christopher was waiting at the same bus stop he was attacked at weeks earlier. This time, Porfirio walked up and shot him several times in the head, killing him instantly. Just 5 days later, on December 16th, investigators recorded a prison call between incarcerated Avenues member Dusty Chavez and Porfirio. In that conversation, Porfirio called Christopher a racial slur in Spanish and admitted that he and Alejandro assaulted him in October. Porfirio acknowledged that Christopher reported the assault and identified Alejandro and that police raided Alejandro's home. He then told Dusty that fool's gone. On November 3rd, about a month before Christopher's death, Anthony Prudhomme, another black man living in Highland Park, was shot in the head while sleeping in his own bed. An LAPD officer investigating the scene suspected that Christopher and Anthony's murders were connected and requested ballistics testing. Firearms expert Diana Paul later confirmed that both Christopher and Anthony were killed with the
Yeah,
same.
we working, man. If you want to support the platform, $Red 1803, or you can drop something in the super chat if you want to send your love and support for me giving you guys authentic, real content like this, man. Hey, I've been talking about this for a minute.
25.
And I'm not making up anything. I'm just telling you, listen, I'm showing you guys what's been going on. These are true stories. It ain't like I'm making these things up. If I was making this up, that'd be one thing. I'm just telling the truth.
Caliber gun. David Elmer Cruz, a former Avenues gang member, told a state court that Porfirio admitted to killing Christopher and that the murder was a hit ordered by Alejandro because Christopher had reported the October assault and was expected to testify. Eventually, Porfirio was convicted in state court of murdering both Christopher Bowser and Anthony Prudhomme. Just weeks after Kenneth Wilson's murder, Jesse shot an off-duty police officer outside a Jack in the Box. He was convicted of that attempted murder in October 1999 and sentenced to 20 years in prison. While serving time, Jesse cut a deal with investigators. He provided information about the Kenneth shooting.
So when I talk about racism that comes from Mexicans, from these Mexican gangs, I'm giving you the proof. I didn't lie about one of these stories. I'm giving you guys the receipts. These Southsiders and a lot of these communities are very racist towards blacks, and this is the proof right here. I got more stories. I haven't even shared half of the stories with you guys. I got plenty of stories that I haven't shared with you guys yet. And I'll give you guys some of those stories in the weeks to come. I got more.
In exchange for immunity. On February 13th, 2000, Jose was arrested for Kenneth's murder. During questioning, detectives played him a taped interview of Jesse, where Jesse implicated Gilbert Merced himself and Jose in the killing. At first, Jose denied any involvement, but when detectives told him that Gilbert had ratted him out, Jose broke and confessed. He was later convicted in state court for Kenneth's murder and sentenced to 45 years to life.
Man, I don't care what nobody told you. I would never confess to that. I would have never confessed to that. You're gonna have to bring hard, concrete evidence to get me convicted. I'm never gonna admit to nothing. I would have kept my mouth shut. Y'all gonna have to prove that I did this. I'm not admitting nothing. I don't care how many snitches you got. I don't care what you say. You gonna have to prove that I did this. That fool got scared and told on himself. Well, if you just tell us the truth, we'll knock some time off. They tricked him. He admitted guilt and they convicted him. Crazy.
In 2005, federal prosecutors indicted members of the Avenues 43 gang in Los Angeles. The three-count indictment centered on civil rights violations, accusing the gang of waging the campaign of violence and terror against African Americans in Highland Park. Count 1 charged Fernando, Gilbert, Alejandro, Porfirio, and Merced with conspiring to interfere with the federally protected housing rights of African American residents in Highland Park. The killings of Kenneth Wilson and Christopher Bowser were highlighted as key overt acts in the conspiracy. Count 2 accused Gilbert, Merced, Alejandro, and Fernando of killing Kenneth because of his race.
Hey, I gotta give old boy a shout out, man. Shout out to Mr. Range, man. Mr. Range, man. That's old boy, man. So I wanted to give him credit for doing this video, man. You know, because fair use, man. But I had to use this video to give everybody the facts about the things that I talk about. So shout out to MYSTIRANGE. This is his YouTube channel, man. He did a great job at editing this video. He did a great job at putting this together. So I wanted to give him a shout out.
And because he was exercising his right to use the public streets of Los Angeles. Count 3 charged those same 4 men with possessing and discharging 3 firearms during Kenneth's murder. Merced didn't go on trial with the rest of his co-defendants because he went on the run. Both Jose and Jesse became key government witnesses, testifying against their fellow Avenues 43 gang members in the federal trial. On August 1, 2006, the jury convicted Gilbert Saldana, Alejandro Martinez, and Fernando Cazares on all counts. Porfirio Avila was found guilty on count 1 only. On November 20, 2006, Gilbert, Alejandro, and Fernando were each given life sentences for every count. The life terms for counts 1 and 2 would run concurrently, but the life sentence on count 3 was to run consecutively. For Gilbert, the punishment was stacked on top of life terms he was already serving in state prison for 2 other unrelated charges, 1 murder charge and an attempted murder charge. Porfirio was sentenced on January 20.
Make sure that you guys bless that like button so this show can get in the algorithm. We need a lot of people to see this. It is what it is. Peace, love, and blessings to everybody. Make sure that you subscribe to the channel while you at it. Tell a friend is going to tell a friend. I'm going to give you guys consistent content.
22nd, 2007 to life in prison on count 1. He was already serving life sentences in state court for the murders of Christopher Bowser and Anthony Prudhomme. In 2004, the FBI and the Los Angeles Police Department put out a reward of up to $70,000 for any information that could lead to the capture of Merced Cambero Jr. For years, Merced managed to stay one step ahead of authorities. He fled across the border and hid out in Baja, Mexico, living under a false identity. His run came to an end on February 3, 2017, when Mexican authorities finally tracked him down, arrested him, and turned him over to U.S. law enforcement. Merced eventually pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. When explaining the sentence, Judge Anderson noted 2 key factors: Merced's acceptance of responsibility and the wishes of victims and witnesses who wanted to avoid the trauma of going through another trial. Thank you for watching.
All right, man. So hit the like button, man. I appreciate everybody for pulling up.
The Bowling Park.
I appreciate everybody for pulling up, man. It is what it is. So, yeah, man, I'll be back with some more content in the morning. But I wanted to share this with y'all. I like to mix up the content, man. You know, I like to talk about different things. And you know, whether if I'm talking about relationships, pull up. If I'm talking about racism in Los Angeles, street gangs, if I'm talking about immigration, what's going on at the border, tap in, man, because the conversation always gonna be good, man. It's always gonna be good, right? So hit the like button. It ain't nothing. Let me address Shay. What I said was this. This is what I said. Not all black people are West Africans. You know, you're confused. Not every black person is West African. Now, some of us are West African, but not every. Africa is a big continent. Uh, Africa is a big continent, right? Not everybody, not all black people come from West Africa. That's what you fail to realize. Africa is a big place. If you think all black people come from West Africa, then you're just lost in the sauce. You don't know what you're talking about. Brazil and South America took in more Africans than the United States. What a lot of people don't know is this. Like, what a lot of people don't know is there was blacks that was already, you had blacks that was already here prior to the slave trade. You had blacks that was already in this country. Some blacks are West African, but not all blacks are West African. You're crazy. Not all blacks are West African. You are foolish. You're not educated. If you think all black people come from West Africa, you are foolish. Clearly, you lack knowledge. Clearly, you are ignorant. Let me tell you something about this. When you talk about indigenous native people to this land, not all of them look the same. You got some indigenous people who were black. You got some indigenous people who were lighter complected. America is a big continent as well. Do you really think all indigenous people look the same? If you go to Africa, not all Africans look the same. You got different phenotypes in Africa, some lighter, some darker, some in between. When it comes to Native American indigenous people, they don't all look the same. Shay, you're just too stupid to have a conversation. If you think all blacks come from West Africa, Africa is a big place. People of different phenotypes. The same thing with Native Americans in America. They don't all look the same. You had some that were actually black. You had some that were lighter, some that were in between. You're crazy if you think all Native Americans look the same. There were different phenotypes here. Just like when you go to Africa, you got people with different phenotypes in Africa. You're crazy. If you think all Native people look the same, then you're ignorant. If you think all Africans look the same, you're ignorant. Not all black people come from West Africa. Some of them do, but some of them don't. You're African. Why don't you tell you're African? Show me one African who looks like me. And both of my parents are black. Both of my parents know. You're arguing with fact. You really think all black people come from West Africa? Girl, you are dumb. You're dumber than a box of rocks. You're just dumber than a box of rocks. You got black people all across the globe. Shay, do you realize that black people come from all across the globe? Blacks were the first human beings on planet Earth. They're everywhere, not just in West Africa. If you go to Africa right now, there's different phenotypes in Africa. Not everybody in Africa looks the same. So if everybody in Africa don't look the same, what makes you think that everybody from the Americas look the same? There's different phenotypes. I don't look West African. Don't know West Africans look like me. I'm not saying that I don't have African in my blood. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you got blacks from different places, and during slavery, they mixed everybody together. That's why you got some blacks with indigenous blood. You got blacks. Listen, bro. When you do the DNA of black people, you're going to find some indigenous blood. You're going to find some African blood. You're going to find some European blood. because of the slave masters. Not all black people come from West Africa, you fool. If you think about North America, not all indigenous people, listen, the indigenous people of the Americas, they don't all look the same. Some of those were dark people, some of those people were lighter. They came in different skin tones with different hair textures. They didn't all look the same. Not all white people look the same. You got some white people with red hair. You got some white people with blonde hair. You got some white people with black hair. Not all Europeans look the same. So if all Europeans don't look the same, not all black people look the same. You don't know what you're talking about, Shay. Listen, I wouldn't expect you to know this, right? If you think about the United States, the eastern part of the United States, you got indigenous people who were way darker than me. You got indigenous people who were you got indigenous people that were dark as Africans. Do you know the original Mexicans look nothing like the Mexicans you see today? They were dark-skinned people. They were dark-skinned, melanated people. The Mexicans that you see today look nothing like the original people of Mexico. If you look at the Mexicans before the Spaniards showed up and colonized Mexico, they look nothing like the Mexicans you see today. They look completely different. The original Mexicans were dark-skinned people. They didn't have pale skin. They weren't light. They wasn't as light as the Mexicans you see today, because the Mexicans you see today got Spanish blood. Let me tell you something. The Aztecs did not have Spanish bloods. The Mayan did not have Spanish blood. The Mexicans you see today have Spanish blood, which makes them lighter than the original Mexicans. These pale-skinned Mexicans you see today look nothing like the original Mexicans. The Mayans didn't have Spanish blood. The Aztecs didn't have Spanish blood. Those are just the facts. But a lot of people, for some reason, don't know that. The original people of Mexico were very dark-skinned. Some of them, you can argue that some of those people were black. The Tainos in Puerto Rico were black. They were not pale-skinned people. If you look at the Tainos, the original people that were in Puerto Rico before the Spanish pulled up, before the Spanish colonized and named it Puerto Rico, the original people of Puerto Rico were black. The Tainos were darker than Africans. The original people of Mexico were just as dark as Africans, if not darker in some cases. So what makes you think there was, listen, you had native tribes in America, and these were black people. These wasn't pale-skinned people. These wasn't red-skinned people. But I don't expect you to know that, because you've been brainwashed by Europeans. You've been brainwashed by the Spaniards. So I wouldn't expect you to understand that part of history. A lot of these native tribes were black people. When the Europeans came to land, they whitewashed the land. What they did is they mixed everybody up, and their goal was to whiten up the people, to whiten up the race. Let me tell you something. Even in Brazil, if you go to Brazil, right? Brazil imported millions of Europeans to whiten up that country, because Brazil was once a majority black country. So they imported millions of Europeans to whiten that place up. They did the same thing in America. A lot of your original peoples, a lot of your aboriginals, some of the indigenous people of the Americas were actually black people. They weren't pale-skinned people. They wasn't red-skinned people. Brazil was so black at one point in time, like I said, they imported millions of Europeans to whiten up Brazil, because there was so many black people there. You didn't know this because you're trying to make it seem like all blacks are West African, and all blacks ain't West African. That's like saying That's like saying everybody from Mexico is Aztec when Mexico was a mixture of different tribes. It wasn't just one tribe of people in Mexico. Mexico was full of different tribes, and a lot of those people look different. The same thing in the United States. You had different tribes of natives. Some of them were black and some of them were lighter. They didn't all look the same. If you go to Africa today, there's different phenotypes all over Africa. They don't all Africans don't look the same. Some are lighter, some are darker. Shout out to Abdallah. Shout out to you, the city of God. There's no proof of this. Oh, there's a lot of proof of this just because you don't know. The original people of Mexico were dark skinned, very dark. You can argue that some of those people were black. You could easily argue that. A lot of the natives in the place that we call the United States today, if you go to the eastern part of the United States centuries ago, some of those original people were actually black. These weren't pale-skinned people. These weren't red-skinned people. Some of your aboriginals of America were actually black. That's what I mean when I say not all black people come from West Africa. Some black people, you got black people that was already here. The original Mexican, you can argue that some of the original Mexicans were actually black. You could easily argue that. The original Mexicans look nothing like the Mexicans you see today. They were darker skinned people, melanated dark people. The Mayans did not have Spanish blood in them. The Aztecs did not have Spanish blood. The Olmecs did not have Spanish blood. The original people of Mexico did not have Spanish blood. Completely different from the Mexicans that you see today. Yeah, true story. You don't know what you're talking about, crazy critters. You don't know what you're talking about, fool. You're just ignorant. You've been brainwashed by Europeans, so you're just regurgitating nonsense that you got from your damn, from your enslavers, from your masters. Not all black people had Afro textured hair. Take a DNA test. I bet you won't. Do you know that there's a lot of black people in the Americas right now? Alberto, you look like a European, bro. I'm gonna be real with you. You claim to be indigenous, but you look like a European. The original people of Mexico don't look like you. The original people of Mexico don't look nothing like you. And those DNA tests, they're not even accurate. Those are not accurate tests. A lot of those DNA tests are rigged. It's false. You can't go off of those fake DNA tests. Anyway, Alberto, you look more European. You look more European than anything. The original people of Mexico were dark skinned. They look nothing like you, Alberto. They just don't. They just don't. They don't look like you, homeboy. So when Mexicans say they're Aztecs, that's just not true because the Aztecs did not have Spaniard blood. The Mayans didn't have Spanish blood. The Olmecs didn't have Spanish blood. Most of your Mexicans today have mostly Spanish blood with some indigenous, but mostly Mexican. Most Mexicans have Spaniard blood. The original people of that land did not have Spanish blood at all. No, you need to educate yourself about African heritage and history because you don't know your own heritage and history. You look more European than anything. You don't look nothing like the indigenous people of Mexico. You look nothing like the original people of Mexico. You look more European. You got more Spanish DNA. You look more Europe. You look more European. You look more Spanish. You don't look like the original people of Mexico. You don't. This is just a conversation. We having fun over here, man. But at the same time, we just chopping up game. That's all. That's it. That's all. So I never understood why Mexicans today call themselves Aztecs when the Aztecs did not have Spanish blood. And the Mexicans you see today, they have some of them are like 60% Spaniard. 60% Spaniard blood. The Aztecs did not have Spaniard blood. So how could you claim to be an Aztec? That don't make any sense. The Spaniards was a mix with the Moors. I feel you on that because the Moors did dominate Spain for at one particular time. The Moors did dominate Spain. They dominated parts of Europe. That's a fact. You know, the Black Moors dominated a lot. Spain. I believe Portugal and other parts of Europe as well. That's true. Black people are the original people on planet Earth. You wouldn't know that, right? Blacks are the original people on planet Earth. So everything comes from black people. Everything comes from black people. Blacks are the original people on planet Earth. You a mixture. You're not even a real, listen, bro. You don't realize that blacks are the original people on planet Earth? You're not smart enough to know that? Everything comes from black people. Everything you see on planet Earth is a spinoff of black people. Some of these tribes, some of these native tribes were black people. That's what you don't realize. If blacks are the original people on planet Earth, what makes you think that some of these native tribes were not black people? Come on, make it make sense. The original people of Mexico, you can argue that some of those people were black if you really want to do your research and homework. But I know a lot of people don't want to believe it because they've been indoctrinated to believe something different. They've been indoctrinated to believe something different. They don't want to go against their teachings. They want to continue that indoctrination. So they'll never go against their teachings. VW Spirit said, you notice everyone tries to tell us where we from when we know we don't have any connections with these when they know we don't have any connections with these places. Shout out to VW Sport 25. I appreciate you, bro. Just runaways from Africa. You crazy. Runaways from Africa. Bro, let me tell you something, man. The original people of Mexico, some of those people were black. Some of your original people of the Americas were actually black people. Because blacks are the original people on planet Earth. That's just a fact. You got black people that come from all across the world, not just Africa. He said Mayans and Aztecs were short. The tall Mexicans had more Spanish blood. Yeah. They had more Spanish blood. That's a fact. Anyway, man, we're gonna wrap this thing up, man. This was a good one though, man. I think I want to do a part 2 to this tomorrow, man, because we talked about street stuff, but we touched on some history as well, man. So I think this conversation was pretty dope. Pretty dope conversation, man. You know? And we're gonna do a part 2 tomorrow, man. Hey, man, like I said, I've been on a roll with this content. What I'm gonna start doing, I'm gonna clip some of these videos, and we're gonna take some of these things and we're gonna turn some of these things into clips, and we're gonna create like 10-minute videos out of this. And yeah, we're gonna do it just like that, man. It's content, baby. But hit the like button if you haven't already. Alberto, man, I don't mind you being up in here. I welcome everybody to come over here, man. If you want to have the conversation, we can have the conversation, man. That's the beautiful thing about my channel. I don't discriminate on nobody. As long as you ain't disrespecting nobody, you're welcome to comment in my chat. Why is the first lady? This is how I know you trolling. You trolling, my almighty King Lord. You talking about that Giselle chick? She is not the first lady of no FBA, man. You're trolling. You people hear stuff on the internet, you just run with it. You know how many times Tyreek Nasheed has roasted T.S. Giselle? T.S. Giselle is not the first lady of FBA, man. You tweaking. You tweaking if you believe that. You tweaking, man. The second president of Mexico was black. Yeah, Vincent Guerrero. Then you had the Gaspar Yanga in Mexico fighting against the Spanish. So the blacks that was in Mexico were actually fighting. Blacks in Mexico played a major role in Mexico gaining their independence from Spain. Vincent Guerrero, Gaspar Yanga, and many other soldiers down there in Mexico, they played a major role in helping Mexico to gain their independence from Spain. You know what I mean? Gaspar Yanga fought off a lot of Spanish soldiers. Fought a lot of the Spanish down there in Mexico. Gaspar Yanga. Look at Yanga. They named a city down there after Yanga because Yanga put in a lot of work against the Spaniards in Mexico. Yeah, true story. Vincent Guerrero. I believe he was the second president of Mexico? Yeah. He was an Afro-Mexican. His nickname was El Negro. Vincent Guerrero's nickname was El Negro. That was his nickname. You dig? Just a friendly conversation, man. We ain't mad at nobody. It's all good, Alberto. I ain't mad at you, man. So he said, yeah, Captain T is claiming that Tariq crowned the trans queen of FBA. That's false. You got to think, Captain Tazariak hangs around Tommy Sotomayor. And Tommy Sotomayor was just begging white people for acceptance. So can you really trust what Captain Tazariak has to say when he hangs around Tommy Sotomayor? Your homeboy Tommy Sotomayor was begging racist white people for acceptance. So can you really take Captain Tazariak's word for anything? Nah, man, he's just trolling. Hit the like button. It ain't nothing. But listen, check game though. Peace. I'm gonna get up out of here. Catch me tomorrow, man. We'll be back with some more dope content. It is what it is. And you guys are welcome to tap in, man. Alberto, man, you're welcome to tap in. It's all love. I ain't tripping. Shay, you're welcome to tap in. It's all love. I ain't mad at you. So yeah, man, the blacks in Mexico played a major role in helping Mexico to gain their independence from Spain. Yeah, man, Captain Tazariak hangs around Tommy Sotomayor, and he has no problem with Tommy's coonery. He has no problem with Tommy Sotomayor's Sambo behavior, and you got the nerve to criticize FBA? That's crazy. But I'm gonna get up out of here, baby. Peace to everybody. I'm getting ready to relax. It's been real. I'll catch y'all on the next one. Peace. Peace to everybody, man. Peace to everybody, man. We're gonna get up out of here. And yeah, man, it's been real. Cat Chase Cable Guy, what's up? You know what I mean? Flack, 592, Shorty McGriff, Go Gadget. Alberto. You know what I mean? Alpha, shout out to you. Peace to everybody, man. Enjoy the rest of